Hey everybody! So sadly I have to re-record this episode. I had already taped the whole thing and didn't realize that my microphone was not working right. And I tried to play along with the audio a little bit, but it didn't work. So it's okay. I'm just going to try to tell the story again, how I told it the first time. And this episode is going to be about, is a sin? Does it always stay a sin, or does it age out and is basically kind of like the Statute of Limitations, not a sin anymore? It aged, don't worry about it. So we're gonna chat a little bit about that, and of course this situation came up because there's a story involved. This particular incident happened in the congregation I grew up in as a little girl. And we had a family that had a ton of kids. Like, they just had so many children. And we're going to call them the Thomas family. So the dad, brother Thomas, he was kind of creepy, honestly. He had creepy vibes. So that's what I remember about him. And such a strange thing to remember. He looked kind of like he never showered, and he always had a green jacket on. Just wow. So he married his wife, who had already had one daughter previous to their marriage. So that was his stepdaughter, and we'll call her Emma. And we'll call the wife Sophie, and we'll call the dad Ted Thomas. So Ted Thomas married Sophie, and she had her little stepdaughter, Emma, and they had a lot of kids. And what I also remember about the family is that a lot of the kids had very spiritual names. I mean, kind of what are you doing to your children kind of spiritual. I mean, names like Hezekiah and Habakkuk. I mean, just really out there. Imagine going to school. I'm Hezekiah. Ooh, that hurts. But they were just on their very spiritual high, naming the children like that. So what later came out, we're going to unpack this story because there's a lot of baggage here. But basically, the stepdaughter, Emma, she grew into a very beautiful, beautiful woman. A lot of guys in the circuit knew her and wanted to marry her. And she ended up becoming pregnant, which nobody really knew about. That was very hush-hush quiet. I don't think they went to confess to the elders or anything like that. And her boyfriend married her. And so they really didn't tell anybody, probably kind of pawned it off as oh yeah, it's a 10-pound preemie kind of baby story. So as the child kept growing and growing up, this little child, we'll call her Baby, just for the story's sake, Baby started looking more and more with each passing year like the stepdad, Brother Thomas. So that was weird, and everybody thought, that's so weird. How does this baby look like her stepdad, like Emma's stepdad, when they're absolutely not related by blood at all? And people started really wondering and talking because the resemblance was uncanny. Well, the years had gone by and the story cracked open. And Ted Thomas went to confess to the elders and told him what had really happened. And this is yet another scandal at the Kingdom Hall, because the story I'm about to tell you is going to make you be floored, basically. So it was all in a night that Ted's wife, Sophie, went to the hospital to deliver one of their many babies. And in that night, he stayed home with the children, including his stepdaughter, who was an older teenager at this point. She already had a boyfriend, so she was probably around 16. It was not uncommon, especially at that time, for 16-year-old Jehovah's Witnesses to get married. I know lots of them, like lots. And so what happened is he was home with the kids, and his beautiful stepdaughter was home with him, and he basically made her drunk and had sex with her, seduced her, and got her pregnant. Yes, that is correct. That is what happened in the night his wife went and gave birth to their baby. What a creep. What a horrible, horrible criminal and creep. So his poor stepdaughter, this beautiful girl, ended up being pregnant from her stepdad. In panic mode, marries her boyfriend really quickly. And he thinks this is his baby now. And so he's married to this beautiful girl, and he has a baby who ends up looking nothing like him and ends up looking everything like the girl's stepfather. Strange. Well, it also came out that this young new husband of the stepdaughter had gotten not one, but 2 sisters pregnant in other congregations at the exact same time. Who, wouldn't you believe it, those ended up being his children, his actual biological children. And Emma's baby was not his child. So he ended up marrying the one girl who didn't actually carry his baby. So all of this came out because Ted Thomas went to the elders and confessed. When he basically could not look away anymore, that child was his. And he went to confess to the elders that he had done a very wrong thing and that he did all of this, which I would consider scheming. When you're scheming to get your stepdaughter, when you get her drunk and then rape her, basically, underage is considered that. And so he went and confessed. There was no hiding from it anymore. This was the truth. And you would not believe what the elder said. Don't worry about it. It's all such a long time ago. You don't even have to worry about it anymore. It wasn't all that long ago. It was a few years, but not that long. And I remember people who, the congregation, they knew, it was just fact of life at this point. But it was also kind of shocking because here, there was no punishment. There was no, other people get disfellowship for far, far less. And this guy, the things that he did, and he got nothing away with it. Nothing happened. And my grandpa was an elder at the time, but he wasn't on this elder committee. And he was just furious. He's like, how is that even right? How does a sin age? It aged out. We have a statute of limitations for a sin that doesn't even make any sense. Little did we know, though, if you look in the elders book under judicial committee, disfellowshipping and all those things, it actually says that if it was a long time ago, the elders don't even really need to worry about it anymore. Just forget about it. So you would think, doesn't that encourage the exact opposite that Jehovah's Witnesses want you to do? When it says in the Bible, go lay your sin open with the brothers, confess, to keep the congregation clean, always tell what's up. Also, the congregation is spiritually sick when one member is sick and hasn't come forward. We have the picture drama of, one person hiding the treasure in the camp and then Jehovah coming in and punishing the whole camp. There was no blessing. I forget the guy's name, but you know who I'm talking about. I have the Bible story in another language in my head, but you know which one I mean, right? Where Joshua couldn't win the battle because there was no blessing. And here you have people gravely sinning. And then the elders book says, don't worry about it. It's aged out. It's okay. And what kind of precedent does this set for other cases? Where's the justice when one person gets severely punished for asking a question that they deem apostate, but the other questions do this kind of malicious, horrible thing? It's just shocking. So when I was waking up, it was the first time that I ever got to see and read the book that is forbidden for women, aka the Elder Guide from the Jehovah's Witnesses, which is so much of it is man-made rules. So for example, this paragraph of if the sin was a long enough time ago, basically forget about it, don't worry about it. Well, that's weird. A, where does it say that in the Bible? And B, what is a long time ago? It doesn't say 15 years, 20 years. Like, what's the statute of limitations here? Don't people need to know? This is so much for interpretation. But then again, if you think about it, so much in the Bible is for your own interpretation. It's really kind of strange if you think about it, because we live in a modern world. Our society is completely different than what people lived in back in the day. And so to have some things that Watchtower tries to make rules for, but you really can't do that because it's really not in the Bible. Because I remember one elder who was a Bethelite, and he said one of the questions that they seem to get so much more than other things currently is about medical marijuana and like marijuana being legalized, and then also about gender and trans sex with gender. Like if somebody had the surgery and, for example, went from male to female and is now physically a female when he becomes a Jehovah's Witness, how is that supposed to be handled? Well, good luck with like pulling scriptures out, because the Bible doesn't talk about this, because this kind of medical science didn't exist back then. And really, how are you going to handle the topic of marijuana, honestly? Because how's it different than drinking? I mean, drinking alcohol makes you somewhat intoxicated. It's from natural, like it's derived from something natural. How is marijuana different? It has a bad rep, but what if you need it for pain? It's just all these questions. And I mean, to me, it's just act your conscience and not what other people, what an organization tries to say. I know they get a lot of questions for in vitro fertilization. All those things, they are not in the Bible. It doesn't say what sexual positions you can have with your mate, with your partner. It doesn't cover so many different things. And it definitely doesn't say your sin has aged out and you're good now. This is just so insane that we look for guidance to man-made rules. And back then, that also, it should have been such a red flag. I think we didn't realize that this is actually in the elder's manual. We were just appalled that this elder was just not dealing with this at all, which to me is also such a red flag. With some things they take so seriously, and this, which was a very, very serious case. I mean, it hurt a lot of people what this stepdad did, this Ted Thomas, and he hurt so many people, and that's all he gets. It's just crazy to me. And just the double standards again in the organization that we see. I'm sure he had a good rapport with the elders, and so he got away with it, and other people don't get away with anything. It's just sickening. Another thing that was really weird when I was looking at the elders book, which, by the way, if you want the link for the PDF, it's available for the public. They put it into the Australian Royal Commission as evidence, so anybody can read it. It's not a secret book. If you think that you cannot or are not allowed to read this book because it's some secret elder thing, then be aware that one thing that cults really love to do is have different ranks, different levels, so that you feel like high and mighty, and to have secret meetings and secret literature. And if you thought, oh, Jehovah's Witnesses don't do that, you are so wrong. This is the prime example for this. How come the elders have a own special book? They feel so special when they carry that in their little bag or on their iPad and no one can look at it but them, because they're in this special secret, guys club where they get to judge over other people, which was another weird thing that when I read the elders book, it says, prepare your heart to judge. That is so weird. We learn when we sit at meetings, do not judge. Stop judging or you will be judged. All the scriptures about how we should not judge one another. And then here it literally says, prepare your heart to judge someone, which we can't read hearts. Isn't this kind of a weird thing? They use this blanket of leave it in Jehovah's hands for everything. Well, how come they're not leaving the judging in Jehovah's hands? How come 3 guys can sit there and judge you when they cannot see your heart? And how many people did get disfellowshipped who were repentant? So how does it hurt your heart when you feel like this is the truth and Jehovah's Holy Spirit is guiding them, but you are really, really sorry, and yet they did not think that you were repentant, but you are, and they're disfellowshipping you anyways because they didn't see the repentance? Well, yeah, they wouldn't see it because they can't read your heart. So I'm sure there's a few elders who read this elders book and think there's some shady business going on in here, because red flags all over the place. And to start with this aging out of sins, forget it. It's such a long time ago. You're good. If you have experiences that you saw that were similar to this aged out sinning or anything with the elders book, would love to hear your experiences from that. And thank you for being patient to wait for this episode. I was gonna have it ready yesterday, but again, I had microphone problems. So I'll be back soon with another story. We still have so much to talk about. So if you have any requests or things that you want to hear about a special topic, let me know. Would be happy to try to do that. So have a good weekend, everybody. Bye.